Quest to Succeed in Chapter 36, Jay felt that it was vital to remain vigilant in order to exist in adverse circumstances. Life was full of struggles, but there were alternatives. If one road was not smooth and it was full of potholes, wisdom suggested seeking a different route and to attempt a safe and secure drive in order to reach the destination. The same principle applies to a life's journey. If one field or area could not provide progression, there would always be an alternative. In the absence of opportunities to progress, Indians sought alternative routes and diverted their energies to undertake their own businesses rather than to work as employees. Indians were very independent-minded. They remained quiet and refrained from unnecessary confrontation or dispute, but pursued their own path. They worked in all professions. There were Asian lawyers, private college owners. They ran medical practices in private sector and chemist shops and stores. It should be recognized and appreciated by the authorities and the society as whole. Jay observed that similar trend was taking place in international relations and on the world scene. When Europeans and Americans ignored the Indian argument, they set up their own organizations for political, defense, and trade relations. India had an educated young generation and 1.4 billion population with a democratically elected government. On the economic front, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank were all controlled by the Europeans and the Americans. They were still suffering from imperialism, colonialism, and superiority complex. They became rich nations from the loots from India and Africa, followed by a large settlement in the United States of America, South America, and of course in Australia. India became politically and administratively free in 1947, yet the imperialist civil servants and the British Army personnel who worked for the British Empire continued to receive pension from the Indian Treasury throughout the 1950s and 1960s. The Indian contribution during the First World War and the Second World War was recognized by the Indian government. The British did not fully acknowledge their sacrifices for the defense and victory of Britain. The Indian contribution was enormous in personnel as well as in financial terms. India and other countries had created an alternative to G7, a group of rich countries. It was known as G20. The G7 became redundant because it could not solve the economic and financial problems of the world. BRICS and other organizations have emerged to augment trade between nations. The climate change, the world food problems, had not been fully addressed by the United Nations and other organizations. It led to bilateral meetings and relations between nations. In 2023, India hosted the G20 Summit of Heads of State and Government. Meetings were held in New Delhi. Prior to the top gathering, meetings were also held in various parts of the country to consider special areas of administration and life. These conventions investigated economic and financial situations, education, trade, culture, sports, food, and objects of concerns of international importance. Indian leaders had shown their tenacity and spirit to lead the country out of troubles. Manmohan Singh, as finance minister, solved the 1998 Asian crisis very tactfully in his country. When many countries witnessed the meltdown and suffered economic and monetary crisis, India's economy continued to grow. There was no financial problem in India during his prime ministership from 2004 to 2014. He and his financial advisors continued to steer the economy and maintain high economic growth. It also included outsourcing and computer programming. After winning the election in 2014, the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, provided an alternative to the Chinese production. It appealed to Make in India. It developed infrastructure and manufacturing sector. Factories were set up for weaponry and in many other fields like motor industry, 2- and 3-wheeler production for exports. Foreign investment was encouraged in manufacturing sector. Indian foreign reserves rose as her exports grew. It achieved self-sufficiency in defense production. Still, it continued to import aeroplane for its air force. India had continued to have good relations with her neighbors, including Iran and the Arab countries. 7% of Saudi Arabia's population was of Indian origin. They do all kinds of jobs and live peacefully there. It had been recognized and appreciated by the Saudi authorities, who suggested that they did not interfere in the Saudi internal affairs. They earn their living by working hard, send money to their families in India. One thing Jay appreciated very much was that India maintained good relations with the United States as well as with the Russian Federation. No one had been able to pull India towards one or the other bloc. She has attempted to improve political relations with China, but with little success, though their trade had grown enormously. India had continued to maintain her independent foreign policy. It had appealed to Russia and Ukraine to stop the war, which started in February 2022. However, it did not intervene or interfere in their actions. Pakistan remained a headache for India. Without stopping terrorism, India would not converse with Pakistan. Jay believed that if a person wanted to accomplish one's objectives, she should not give up, but should continue with his efforts. His last effort could lead to success. The public decisions were taken for the benefit of most individuals and families. Trust was vital in social relationships. If we like someone, we should respect them. People should be careful from exploiters and those who were determined to harm others. Some people were unable to understand Jay and his thinking because of their lack of experience or education in certain areas. Jay was not going to listen or follow them without proper consideration and reasoning. He did not want to be influenced by ignorant persons or to lose the plot which could go against his welfare and progress. He wanted to maintain the same principle in personal life as in society. After teaching at a secondary school for 12 years, Jay was advised by one of his colleagues from another department that it was time he moved to teach at an institution of higher education. Jay was also thinking on similar lines, that he had nothing much to contribute at the school. He, therefore, moved to teach at a college of higher education, and in a few years to a university, where he made enormous contribution in academics and multicultural education. At the time of his departure from the school, his addition to the school welfare and academic achievement by students was admired by the headmaster. His colleagues told him that this school would not survive without him. One of his friends called him the fourth pillar of the school. In fact, the school closed 5 years after Jay's departure from that place. There was, however, a different reason for that, and not Jay's leaving the secondary school teaching. At the university, the demand for him to speak about multiculturalism increased. Jay participated in politics and history department, economics and business studies department, and sociology department. He wanted to tell people that Britain was bigger than just an Anglo-Saxon nation. Other people who lived there were faithful, law-abiding, and worked hard at all levels of society. Jay's input to multiculturalism was valued by authorities. He thought that the situation in Britain was improving, and it was much better than they were 20 years earlier or when he arrived in London to start a new life, but he was proved wrong. During the summer months, violence flared up in various parts of London. The real cause of this act was never discovered. It was, however, argued that the police's mishandling of this latitude, coupled with the prevailing economic and social grievances, led to violence. The setting spread to outer London areas, as well as to other cities of England, including Liverpool and Manchester. At one stage it looked like a concerted action. It was repeated over the weekends throughout the summer months. The police and the youths affronted each other. A great deal of damage was inflicted on public property, including the police cars. The government set up a commission of inquiry under the chairmanship of a retired judge to inquire into the causes of disturbances. People called this a delaying tactic because no immediate action was forthcoming. Racism was on the rise in England. It was not only the police which displayed heavy-handedness towards the black youth. The black children also faced racism at school. The white teachers did not fully work for their welfare. Jay's school in London had a substantial number of black students who were not making much progress academically or socially. In the wake of the judge's inquiry, the Education Authority appointed a new headmaster who was highly qualified and intelligent, but he had afro hair because of his Afro-Asian origin. The white teachers refused to accept his leadership. They often clashed with him at meetings, and refused to implement his policies. They did not cooperate with him, even when he had promising ideas to improve the condition at the school. Many teachers turned up to meetings when he wanted to see only the heads of department. They were noisy and tried to annoy him. He, however, kept his cool and smiled. When Jay discovered of such activities, he was incredibly sad. Jay found subjective criticism bad and the rejection of the headmaster's ideas unhelpful. All teachers did not oppose him, but those who were critical of him were very vocal. At the school, no progress was being made in any direction. Obstruction and impediments continued, which looked like withstand and flout. One teacher called him Black Hitler. Another felt that he, the headmaster, would crack one day. The education authority considered acting against the rowdy and disruptive teachers. The headmaster did not allow any action against his staff. He was very forgiving. He, nevertheless, could not achieve any cooperation from the teaching staff. The education authority decided to close the school. The headmaster took an early retirement. The students and staff were allocated to other schools and other boroughs. Certain teachers also took early retirement.